So hi everyone and welcome to the launch of Byolete. Thank you so much to everyone that's turned up tonight. So for those of you who've obviously followed us from the beginning, you'll know that we actually started off by doing a podcast. So this whole venture started out 18 months ago, and we thought what better way to launch this current business than to do a live podcast. We were going to record it live, but we quickly realised that we don't have the resources or the technology at this moment to actually do it. So for anyone who actually is going to watch this and think, oh, actually it could be beneficial for someone that I know, we did record it last week and it is on our YouTube, so go and check it out if anyone wants to. But yeah, so really this is just an opportunity for everyone to get to know us a little bit more personally, but also get to know the brand. So we just want to let you know what we are doing with the brand, what it is that we're offering, but where we hope that it'll go as well in the future.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, if anyone feels uncomfortable today, I normally heckle and slag my mum and dad off from the couch at home. So they've given me prior approval beforehand. Your mum and dad are actually okay.
I know.
They never get slagged off at all, do they? But yeah, so we just thought we'd go into what is Byolete, because every time we try and explain what Byolete is, someone has a completely different sort of idea of what it is.
Yeah, I think for some reason it's really hard to actually explain it, but we're going to give it a go.
So it's an at-home blood testing service. So that means we're not going to turn up at your door with an apron and take your blood. You're going to order the test online and it's going to come in a kit like this, which inside this you'll have lancets to draw the blood out, and then you collect it within tubes. Now, do what we didn't on the first one. We had a bit of a breakdown on Monday where we tried your test.
Yeah, we were trying to record it at the same time for like the website to show people how it worked. Didn't read the instructions. I also have really poor circulation anyway, so tried to do it. Couldn't get any blood out. And yet we had a breakdown thinking, oh my God, is anyone going to be able to do this? But we did do it with Lee's the next day and it was perfectly fine. So, yeah,
so that's it. Basically, we're just here to provide information. So that's how we've gone about it. We're not a diagnostic or treatment company because legally we would have to jump through 20 more hoops. But it's just an idea that we're targeting people that probably would never have been seen by a GP, even if you can get him to an appointment in the first place. And then it's just that you've got a good idea, because I'm going to bring him up now. It's only been 2 minutes. But John over here had a heart attack when he was 50. But the point was, the first time he ever turned up at a GP was when he was 50, sadly having chest pain. It was actually when we started our extension. We waited 3 to 6 months to do this extension. First day, carked it on the day, didn't we? But the point is that if he would have had some form of intervention when he was like your age, 26, then it could have programmed his life in a different way and maybe not be so down now about the life he's got to live. But that's what Byolete is.
Mm-hmm.
And who are we in terms of how are we qualified to run such a company? So I'll let you go first.
Well, we're both clinical pharmacists, so I've been qualified for 7 years. We started off in hospital, so that's where we met actually. We met at Aintree, so did that for 3 years, and then we've been in our current role for the last 4. So we now work in primary care, which is in a GP surgery in Greater Manchester. Well, we see this every single day. So we are interpreting bloods every day. And we also see Johns of the world every single day. And it is really frustrating for us because since we've started looking more into the science, the stuff that we actually don't get taught when you go to medical school. So doctors, nurses, pharmacists historically don't really get much training on lifestyle intervention, which is the foundation really of health. When we started looking more into it, it became more frustrating for us when we were seeing these patients because, like you say, if we would have just intervened or if someone would have intervened a couple of decades before, then it's less likely that these patients would turn up the way they do. But obviously, that's the reason why we're sort of qualified to have done this or even just had an interest in it, to be honest, is because we do see it all of the time.
Yeah, so my background's the same. 8 years qualified in August, just gone. And we've worked in secondary care, so that's a hospital setting for anyone who's not familiar with it. And in hospital settings, we're so good at treating disease and it just bypasses all this idea of prevention, because if someone does turn up with a heart attack, years ago, you would never have survived it. Now we can treat anyone that up on their feet in no time. Spinal surgery is a matter of 24, 48 hours and you're back on your feet. But then when we moved into GP land, where Jess's mum also works, and she'll validate a lot of this, is that you're dealing with the same patients, but with half the resources. And then it was this idea of why don't we just try and prevent it before it even comes to fruition?
Yeah.
So I think that's where the idea come from. And then that sort of led us on to all the different areas of medicine. Is this what you wanted to go on to?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you think about medicine and treatment as a whole, so it was first revolutionized by Hippocrates about 2,000 years ago. And he was the first person to say, it's not the gods above that cause disease, it's actually something in your environment. So we said, okay, well, that's fair enough. Then it comes to around the Victorian era. And then we had antibiotics, and someone come up with this idea that there's things out there, microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, that can actually cause you to be sick and die without you even seeing it.
There's actually a famous surgeon, I don't know what his name is, but he was doing post-mortems in the morning and then going and delivering babies in the evening or like in the afternoon. And these babies were getting really sick and dying. And so he was thinking, what is it that I'm doing that is, what causing this to happen? So he started washing his hands in between his morning clinic and his afternoon clinic, and he's seen the drop. People thought he was crazy because he was saying there must be something that we can't see that is doing this. And obviously, lo and behold, we then discovered that bacteria and viruses exist. But I think it's important because it's sort of like where we are trying to go now is that we probably don't see preventative health or the era that we want to get into as ever coming to fruition. And I think that probably in 20 years' time, it will be all about, someone used the term medicine 3.0. So at the moment, we're in medicine 2.0, where, like you say, we're very good at treating, diagnosing disease. We're just not very good at preventing it. And so what we want to try and do with Byolete is be part of this bigger picture of moving more towards prevention over than just reaction.
Yeah. I mean, there's quite a few people in this room are still in their 20s. And it's this idea of we're trying to prevent you from having a disease that you may never get. It's a genetic lottery. There's some people out there who can do whatever they want and still live a life free from disease. But I think that's the hardest thing. And it'll be something in retrospect where we go, oh, actually, if you would have started doing a run club and all them things, it might have happened. Mm-hmm. But motivation, personal motivation, we've tried to nail down what made us start this company. So, sorry, Dad, but after your heart attack, we were thinking, well, isn't it sad that people like me, Dad, are out there who doesn't have access to this information? And then we thought, okay, well, there's nothing we can really do. We were trying to start a business because, like always, we always want more money to do other things in life, but we couldn't think of anything. And then it was later on that year, was it October, we started to hear, was it ultra processed food or ultra processed people by
I read the book, and then I was like, oh, okay, let me just, we'll just look more into it. Because like I say, when you do a medical degree, you don't really get taught about food or exercise, which is crazy because, like I say, it is the foundation of everything when it comes to your health. So we just looked more into it. Then we set up the podcast. So the podcast was originally called the Longevity Podcast, for anyone who was there from the beginning, which we were trying to figure out ways to live longer, or not longer, but just live better years. So be healthier for longer. And it just took us down so many different routes, didn't it? So we were obviously looking into nutrition, we were looking into exercise, looking into sleep, stress management.
It got quite bad at one point. So we had to clear out all of our cupboards with all the spices because we were like, cinnamon was cinnamon with something else. And we just cleared out everything. It went through, it was a bit severe at one point, wasn't it? Where we wouldn't have anything that wasn't organic.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, I had acute colitis in the January 24. I had the good old colonoscopy, which I wouldn't recommend to anyone. Mm. And then what happened after that? So we come back and actually done the first episode of the podcast because we were in A&E for 14 hours. We met everyone under the sun. Some people shouldn't have been there. Mm-hmm. But we thought, how can we try and affect people on a larger scale? So that's where that podcast come from. But we always thought, how can we, apart from just giving people information, how do we then make it where it's compelling? So that's where the blood testing come in. If you can see numbers, then you're more inclined to go, well, actually, I can act upon that. Mm-hmm. But trying to legally set that up, actually, it was your mum who gave us the first sort of lead on that day with that labs, wasn't it? Alpha. Oh, yeah. That one, that was stress-induced, so it might have been. Yeah. So it was your mum with the labs, wasn't it? And then we went down this rabbit hole, and now eventually you've got a different lab, but we'll come up to it.
So I wanted to go on then to what we actually offer. So for anyone who doesn't know, we're at the moment anyway, we're targeting cardiometabolic disease. So that encompasses a lot of different things, but the prevention of heart attacks, strokes, the prevention of high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance are all things that we're trying to detect with these blood tests. The reason being because heart disease anyway is the number one leading cause of death worldwide still, which it shouldn't be because it is the most preventative of all the diseases. Second is cancer, which you could argue is actually caused by metabolic dysfunction. So if you have insulin resistance, if you have obesity, you are at an increased risk of developing certain types of cancers. Third is neurodegenerative diseases, so things like dementia. That is also linked to insulin resistance. It's also linked to high cholesterol. And then fourth is type 2 diabetes. So if you look at the top 4 reasons for why people die within the world, we're trying to target the top 4. And the whole thing stems from what you eat and how you exercise. Obviously, genetics does play a part, but 90% of those diseases could actually be prevented if people just took more heed in what they were doing. And so that's why we've chosen these specific panels.
Yeah, and for numbers, so cancer is second with 12 million, cardiovascular disease is first with 19 million, but no one ever gives that any credit.
Yeah, there's no research that really in the grand scheme of things. Like obviously you always see events going on for cancer, but never for heart disease because, yeah, it's just not glamorous probably.
So how do we do it with the test? So I know I've just thrown you off there, sorry. But in terms of the baseline test that we offer, it's called Prevent. So it's just a genetic lipid profile, which is your cholesterol. You'll have loads of people go to a GP and say, oh, I've had my cholesterol checked, it's high. I mean, what they tell you at the GP surgery, bar our advice and Jane's, is it's normally...
On Ronnie's.
On Ronnie's, well, sorry, yeah. No, you went into private health and done the proper thing. But the advice that's given out is poor, isn't it? It's just genetic. And then the classic advice is go and exercise more, go and do this, and it's not really impacting your life.
I would say as well, like whenever you get taught about consultation skills, again, going back when you're in uni, sort of you obviously are taught how to treat disease, so it's diagnosis, then it's treatment, and then the last thing is lifestyle intervention. And so whenever you're thinking about a consultation, this goes for most health professionals, that is the last thing, that it'll just be, oh, and by the way, you should have a healthy lifestyle, like, but that goes without saying, but there's no substance to it. And so you've probably yourselves, I don't know whether anyone like has been to the GP recently and had that advice, and it's really nothing on the clinician, I don't feel like, because we just don't, it's just not really pushed, and it's the emphasis just isn't on lifestyle. But hopefully, with setting up this company, like that is what we're all for. Obviously, we are for treatment as well. And if anybody did come to us and they had a result that was really abnormal, we have processes in place to flag that up, to escalate it. But yeah.
Yeah, and one thing is we wanted to make health transparent, because when people go to a clinician, it's just a lot of people can be passed off, can't they? And when we looked into blood testing, so if you get a blood test here in Liverpool, I always use the liver. So one of the liver markers could go up to a number of 50 for context sake. And then if you live in Cheshire, the upper limit of normal could be 40, purely based on the population you're in. So you're normal within a sick population. So I was going to use this analogy. Hopefully I don't offend too many people. But if you look at an Everton squad, if you're a normal player in the Everton squad, you're not going to be the same calibre as if you are in a Liverpool squad. The same with a lot of things. And there's this idea that you can be overlooked based on where you're from. So geographically, you can be put off because you live in Liverpool. But if you live in Chester or down south where they've got inherently better health, you get better looked after. So that's why we wanted to do this and standardise a lot of bloods across. Yeah. And then we have the Prevent Plus. Mm-hmm. Have I just completely went off?
No.
I might have.
Yeah, no.
But anyway, Prevent Plus, what does that offer over your generic GP test?
So it offers everything that you've just mentioned within the Prevent panel, but it also offers some more, what would you say, more innovative or more accurate or more...
Yeah, more accurate and better studied things, ironically.
Yeah, studied biomarkers, which again, they're all testing for the same things, which is cardiovascular risk. But the Prevent Plus panel contains a marker called ApoB, which is the actual number of particles of bad cholesterol, if you want to call it bad cholesterol, which is a better marker for cardiovascular risk. We also offer CRP, which is an inflammatory marker. You probably wouldn't actually get that ever from your GP. Again, with ApoB, you wouldn't get that either. And that's why, if you can, I would go for Prevent Plus over Prevent. But like, Prevent is a good way to sort of have a baseline idea, isn't it?
And one thing I brushed over before was another motivation. So for anyone who doesn't know, I've got a genetic form of diabetes, and I was discharged in 2017 from requiring annual follow-up. And then it was only when I had the colitis 7 years later, I actually went and got a blood test during the monitoring process and found out that my diabetic bloods were really elevated. Like, if you've seen them in a GP surgery, you would be offering treatment. And I just went under the radar completely for that duration of time, purely because of my age. And it's people that, if we can intervene at such a young age, it just has profound effects. But that was a big motivating factor, is that everything's so aesthetically driven. So a lot of people now are doing high rocks training, a lot more doing run clubs, aerobic fitness. And it's this idea that it doesn't matter how you look on the outside, you can still be biochemically unwell on the inside, which, unfortunately for me, is one of the reasons, isn't it?
Yeah. I think as well, the last thing that I wanted to say as well, just going back to what other tests we also offer, well, one of the other biomarkers is called LP(a), which is a genetic variant that people will have. I've seen it a couple of times in very specialist clinics. So I think it'll be, again, all of these biomarkers, although they're not offered yet on the NHS, I think they will be gold standard in, like, hopefully 5, but that's probably being optimistic. But definitely in the next 10 years, we will be going towards this. But they're just really specific, and they give you a better idea of actually what's going on. Just with any biomarker, though, like you say, it's just knowing exactly what's going on the inside, because you can't hide. Like, we wear watches, and it can give you an indication of, your heart rate variability. We know that they're fairly accurate, but sometimes they can be inaccurate. Whereas if you're using something like this, it's completely accurate. Like, you can't fake these results. And then if you are testing, younger and younger, it gives you more time to make interventions. And it's not, sorry, John, but like going to hospital, having a heart attack, and then having to change everything all at once, which is really difficult. It just gives you that bit more time.
Yeah. I'll give him a bit of credit. He actually, my dad used to drink a fair bit going to match, didn't you? But you completely, my mum's chipping in now, sorry. But he changed his life, but it's sad because he could have still continued to drink. Because we spoke before and you said, what's your favourite drink? And you still said a pint of lager, even though you haven't had one for 2.5 years. But you could still have one. And I think it's because now you think it's an all or nothing response. And if you would have intervened 10, 20, 30 years before, there you go. So I know you were saving this for after the Q&A if anyone's got any questions, but why is Byolete different? Or have I just made this one up? Why is Byolete different, and where do you see it going?
We were looking at so there are other companies that do offer things like this, and I think that it will become more popular over the next couple of years. You'll start to see more popping up. I've seen a lot of testosterone testing companies recently. I don't know what it is they're doing, whether they're testing your testosterone and then replacing it. We will start to offer stuff like that, but we'll get onto that in the next section. But I haven't actually seen anybody do an advanced heart health, the specific panel that we've chosen. So we've actually created it from the evidence and all the studies that we've been looking at. So it's a completely bespoke panel that we've done. And especially you won't get it for the cost price that we've done it. We've tried to make it as accessible as possible because we think that, we do believe that it is so important. So yeah, I think that's maybe why we are different, is that we're trying to take advice and look at people in America who are doing it, and then start bringing it here. And I think, to be like you were touching on before, there is this huge divide from the north and the south when it comes to health. There is a massive health inequality, especially cardiovascular disease. And we were just thinking, imagine if we could create a healthier Liverpool, because it does get overlooked. I think it's like the life expectancy for a man is like 10 years younger in Liverpool than it would be in London, which is crazy. When it is like a first world country, but
yeah. And I think the other thing is that we actually practice what we preach. So we wouldn't tell anyone or give advice and not do it ourselves. So if we say go for a run every Saturday, we're probably doing it. Eat certain foods, we're doing it all the time. So I think once you can see that we're doing it, and if there's something that at the moment, the evidence is saying we need to do, let's pick one, VO2 max, 3 hours of aerobic training a week. If that changes in 2 months' time and says, oh, it's actually 5 hours, we'll be honest and bring it out. There's no reason to hide any of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's...
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot. So yeah, like Lee said, we'll just have a quick 15-minute break. Everyone can go to the toilet if you want, grab another drink. And then we'll just come back and do a little 15-minute question and answer if anyone has any questions. I know that obviously we've been through a lot. We have got some questions that me mum mainly asked, so I'll go through them if no one actually has any. But yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Okay, is everyone ready to restart? It's only going to be literally 10-15 minutes, just if anyone has any questions. So, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, well, you know, I did.
Of course you have.
So this is 3 more. Yeah, so one of the biomarkers in the Prevent Plus is Lp(a). So you've probably heard of the terms good and bad cholesterol. There is no such thing as good and bad cholesterol. But if it was to explain it, cholesterol is a lipid-soluble molecule, so it needs to be transported in your blood in some kind of vehicle. So usually the bad cholesterol will be contained within an LDL particle, which is a protein particle, so that it can basically go through the blood. Now, Lp(a) is sort of like a flag on the top of this molecule that is linked to, or it's genetically inherited. And if you have a high proportion of these molecules, you are at more risk, or you're at higher risk of developing heart disease. And also aortic stenosis, which is like a hardening of like the aortic valve and the aorta. We don't test it at the moment, and everybody from the age of 5 will have their Lp(a) levels for what they're going to be for the rest of their life. So yeah, the answer to that is that if we can test that, and if you do have high Lp(a) levels, then it's likely that you have inherited it and you have a genetic variation that's going to increase your risk. At the moment, there's not much that we can do for Lp(a). So if it does come back high, obviously we can mitigate all of your other risks through lifestyle. And there is one medication that will lower it. But one of the questions actually was sort of what happens if any of the bloods are abnormal. If that did come back, then we would refer that to a GP, who probably, if it's an Lp(a) level, would then refer it to a consultant, because a GP wouldn't be able to interpret it. We just don't do it at the moment. So everyone has got a code. Well, there's like a QR code which actually just takes you straight to the website. And then the tests are live now, so for you to order. Everyone's also got a little a card with Launch 20 on, so that's just to say thanks for everyone for coming. If you are going to order a test, then you get 20% off your order.
Yeah, just sort code and mother's maiden name. That'll do us. We might send you it. Hello, David. Hello, Zach. We're just doing a Q&A, so we went through it all, and if you've got anything, by all means, shout it out. Hopefully related to this, but James or Jay. Yeah, so you'll get an email with your results, and then you'll get access to the portal, and it'll come up with standard reference ranges through all of it. And the whole point of what we've set up is it's informational purposes only. So it's up to you to act upon it in what way you feel fit. Now, we've put a lot of posts and blogs up there in terms of what all these markers mean for you to interpret in your own way. And in terms of yours will probably be very good given the fact that you're healthy, your age, and it's just you have a baseline going forward then. And the whole premise of Prevent Plus in this instance is it gives you a 30-year risk calculation as opposed to 10, and then that percentage means something more. Like if I said to you now to type in all your details, you probably have a 10-year cardiovascular risk of probably less than 1%. That means nothing to you. But if I said over 30 years it's 10, 12, okay, well I might start acting on it. So the whole process is you scan it online, you get the test sent out, do your bloods from home, and then everyone's autonomous then, isn't it? And then it comes up in your portal or an email.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you also, it gets dispatched sort of the same day if it's before 12, and then it'll be the next day afterwards. So it'll get sent usually, well, it was via DPD when we got it. Everything is contained within the kit. So you get the 4 lancets, which are the finger prick to actually take the blood. You've got 2 bottles where you collect it. One of the instructions are all in it anyway. There's also a video link where Lee kindly videoed it for us, demonstrated it. You'll send it back within the sleeve that's contained inside this kit, and then you can either post it through a letterbox or you take it to the Royal Mail shop. And then it usually comes back within 1 to 2 days. So it gets analysed by a lab actually in Manchester. They analyse it, and then the results come back 1 to 2 days. You can also offer a consultation. So when you actually go onto our website, there's an option to add on a consultation, and it's a 15-minute consultation with either myself or Lee. And then it just means that we can go into a bit more detail of what each individual biomarker means, and then maybe give some lifestyle advice on what you can do to mitigate your risk going forward. But like you say, we have actually put a lot of information already online for free, so that if people feel like they can't afford it or it's too much, then the information is out there for everyone to have a look.
So if it comes back, well, Jay, you're getting used, sorry. So you're so if yours come back as normal, it depends on if you're maintaining the same lifestyle, you probably don't really need testing for the next 5 years. But if you say, do you know what, I'm going to go vegan for 3 months, 6 months, every 3 months, you can then get a new diabetic result or a new lipid result. So it depends on how thorough you want to be.
Yeah.
But we don't want to create it where it's health anxiety, where you're thinking, oh, well, I've got this marker, it's a bit raised, and you're focusing on that. We don't want to create that.
So I think, it depends on what you want. But as a sort of marker, probably once a year would be someone who maybe was at a bit more risk. If not, then like once every couple of years. And then if you are implementing, then it changes 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, I think we've discussed a lot of the science behind it, which we weren't going to go into too much. But like you said at the beginning, people have probably heard of good and bad cholesterol. There is no such thing. Cholesterol is the same molecule. It's just how it's transported around the body. So it's technically good if it goes from your tissue towards your liver again, where it's being cleared. And it's bad if it goes from your liver towards any sort of tissue. But these new tests, cardiovascular risk is based upon the ability to analyze how many molecules will collide with your blood vessels. That's probably the most layman's terms I can say. So if you have a concentration, we could have 10 litres of water. That doesn't tell us how many bottles that's contained within. So we want to know how many bottles that water is contained within, because if you've got the same volume of water, 10 litres in one bottle or 10 litres in 10 single 1 litre bottles, you've got a higher risk by having more bottles.
Yeah.
And that's where this new blood test comes in, because it's actually been out since 1994. The blood test you get from the GP for LDL it's calculated via 8 routes, meaning
you get
there's 8 different answers we could come up with. So it's not accurate. For some reason, we go with it because I think there was a pharmaceutical company at the time that paid for it to go through. I don't know exactly. But we use this one because it's standardized.
Yeah.
And that's got the best risk marker going forward. And that's why we can predict 30 years as opposed to 10. That was no one's question, but I just thought I'd throw that in. Oops.
I think the only other question that I had written down in here that we haven't done was why target healthy individuals. And it's really just because it's just giving you a greater understanding into your health. And if anything does flag up, then you can do something about it earlier than, just reacting to it when it, if anything does happen. And like Lee said, you have a, you can sort of point, like where you've gone from and where you're going to. Especially with heart disease, it's all about this area under the curve. So if you've got a higher cholesterol level over a longer period of time, that increases your risk than having a really high cholesterol for like a shorter period of time, if you understand what I mean. So tracking it over a longer period is going to be more beneficial than doing it over a shorter period.
I mean, there's loads of tests that we can do, but one that I want to bring out is the glucose tolerance test. Is this what you wanted? Well, so basically, I know you obviously know quite a bit about it, but in terms of if you take a HbA1c reading, which is your marker of diabetic bloods over the previous 3 months, and I used to think I could cheat that as a kid going for appointments, but if you take that over 3 months, you could have a value of, let's say 30. So anything less than 42 is considered good or non-diabetic. That doesn't tell you anything about how your body's reacting to carbohydrates and sugar. Whereas if you do this oral glucose tolerance test, and I have done this when I was young, you basically turn up fasted and do a blood test, and you get your standard glucose level and how much insulin your body's producing at rest. Then you take a sugary drink with about 75 grams of glucose, and then we measure it over the next 2 hours every 30 minutes and see what your body's doing. And ideally, it should go up your insulin with the glucose and then come down nicely to a basal level. What happens is, before diabetes, insulin resistance manifests, you'll see insulin spike really high, but on a normal HbA1c, you would never pick this up. So that's what I'd want to do, is bring this out so that you can predict it 10 years before it's even going to come out. And I think, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what yours is, but if you don't. But yeah, that's where we want to go. Yeah, I mean, we're not targeting the young and healthy. They're the ideal patient group because they've got years to act. Of course you can. But the thing is but 50% of all heart attacks and strokes that are going to happen at 65 or younger. So the chance is, if you're 50, so if you are a patient now, so you've come onto the register now, you'll go onto breast cancer screening, you'll have prostate cancer, so you're within the NHS bubble. But these patients who are 20, 30 don't. So if he still got that evidence or the blood test when he was 50, he could potentially offset that risk, but you just got a shorter time span to do so. And that's the same with anything. You still always have a benefit by starting health. Yeah, so you'll still get it. But like Jess said, the LPA, which is the one that's expressed from the age of 5, if you've had 50 years of damage, it's hard to mitigate. And that is the only one at the moment where we can only affect it by 30%. Even with the highest medication, you can't do much with lifestyle. Mm-hmm. But ours is all about preventative, trying to do it. But anyone can have it. You can even have it if you're 80. But I mean, again, it's all about risk. What are you going to gain from knowing 30 years in the future?
As well, what Jay was saying as well, where the future of Byolete's going. So we have actually, when we set up the company, we chose 5 blood panels, or 5 different panels. So we've used, obviously, Prevent and Prevent Plus were 2 of them, and then the other 3. So hopefully in the future, we're going to bring out sort of a men's health, which includes testosterone. We're also going to do a women's health, specifically looking for PCOS, which is affecting a lot more people, especially nowadays. And then also we do a nutrition panel where you can test for vitamin deficiencies. So we haven't launched them ones yet, but in the future, we hope that we can bring those out if obviously it goes well.
Yeah. I think one of the ethical things as well as setting it up is, if we do a blood test for anyone in this room, there's a good chance we can find something wrong with every single person. Sorry, but and then it's whether a lot of these companies, so I'm not going to name them, but they can then capitalize by giving supplements, which is another conversation, but they're not regulated. And then you're taking something merely for a large profit. But we just wanted people, if it's just one test within a lifetime where they just got an idea of, okay, well, that's where it is. By all means, people are happy to have higher levels of risk. My level of, or my perception of risk is quite low. I won't do hardly anything that I know of scientifically to hinder my health, but then there'll be, let's use you. So our James obviously can clearly see what can happen in the future, but our James at the moment's got a higher level of risk, which is fine. And in terms of your health, you'll probably have a better outlook than me, but it's just how you are with risk. Yeah. But that's the point, is just how you want to exercise risk. I think it's a big thing. Yeah. Does anyone have anything else?
At the moment, we can't, but that's what we hope to maybe do in the future. Our partner lab, who we've collabed with, they do so many different things. So they do things like VO2 max testing, which we'd love to get into. They probably would be able to do the oral glucose tolerance test, but like you say, it is like that would be the gold standard.
Oh no, there is something though. So we use insulin resistance as a surrogate marker. We use HDL and triglycerides. Yeah. And if you've got a ratio of 2 to 1, so you've got double the triglycerides to HDL, there's a good chance that you're insulin resistant, because
it doesn't always pick it up, but it can do, and it can determine whether you're insulin resistant 10 years before the HbA1c test would. So yeah, we do that in both panels, which you'll test for that.
Yeah, and we've been doing it with the last, let's say, 2 months. We've been looking at patients who've got high HbA1cs and having a look at, does HDL and triglycerides, does that match that ratio in everyone and disproportionate? Yeah, and then nothing happens. If it's borderline, that's it. We do. Yeah, see you next year.
Yeah, we don't really look at triglyceride again, like on the NHS. a GP would. It is crazy, like what you're saying. It is. You'll see blood results that are so abnormal, and they'll just put out normal for this patient, and then you look back and it's not, and it's like being upward trending. Like for instance, your bad cholesterol, and it's just like, oh, it gets me. It's like almost gets to the point where, because we've looked into the science so much of it, that it becomes like unethical, kind of, where you're like, I wish I could do something about this, but it's just.
But with a system set up for sick people, we're very good at sick people, but we're just not good at foresight with a lot of things. A lot of it's led by the idea you can just take a tablet.
Yeah.
And conventional therapies, like Joe, obviously we talked about it a lot. Joe's chiropractor, and that's the line of stuff we should be going down for pain relief, but we don't, because there's no legalities in NHS care. And it's just stupid, because that's where it fundamentally starts, by food, exercise, mobility, alignments, and all them things. But yeah, so hopefully in the future we can do that one. But at the moment we're just using fats as a proxy.
So yeah, thank you so much to everyone for coming tonight. Everyone take a bag if they haven't already. There's like a little sheet in there which is just showcasing local businesses. So just have a read of it. Also, myself and Leah hosted a run club every Sunday from this week at Cottage Coffee. So if anyone's free, it's 9 a.m. in McGoldrick's Park in Huyton, and we'd love to see you all there.
I was going to say, go through the companies of people who's here so people know. So you've got Dermotanicals, Jane over there, organic skincare. We've got Penula, which is Lisa. Bamboo, organic, hypoallergenic towel and bathwear. We have got next Sweater Social by Abby and Ika.
Yeah. So they're a social club that you run events like periodically, where it just brings together people who just have a love for fitness, and then also local businesses. Then we've also got 75 Orton Street, which is a wellness club in Orton. So if anyone gets a chance to go and have a look, because they also have an on-demand reformer Pilates bed, and it's unbelievable. Really good date night.
Neil have a coffee shop when Brogan actually starts getting a bit of work done. But then Brogan is a co-investor or shareholder within Win-Win, biodegradable water, as you can see on some of the tables. So that's good, isn't it? And then we've got
Liz Edge, who couldn't be here, but that's my friend. She's a counsellor.
But yeah, thanks for everyone who's turned up. It was a different type of launch event as opposed to drinks and parties. But like I said, we're around for a few moments. We've got the venue for another half an hour or so, having me to talk through things. But yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I'm going to see you soon.